We're going to have a little continuation of our school figure session. I did circles with Moshe, but now we have Colby, and my buddy Megan Maurice is back to help me, and you can see how petite Colby is. Colby is a Percheron thoroughbred cross, and he's a young horse. He's 5 years old, and I wanted to use Colby as one of my demo horses because I wanted you to see, as we have with Ziggy and Moshe, that you don't need a fancy warm blood to do this basic training, right, Colby? So what I'm going to do is, like I said, a continuation of the school figure exercise and session. And the reason that we do school figures, remember, is to promote the physical quality called flexibility. And in horse dressage terms, flexibility means the horse's ability to bend laterally through his side. And horses are like people for the most part. They're not ambidextrous. They are what we call hollow or soft on one side of their body and stiff, and the muscles are elongated on the other side of the body. So it's a little bit of a challenge to make the horse appear ambidextrous so that he can equally bend to the right and to the left. And that's why we have school figures, and even more importantly, that's why we have the dimensions of an arena with markers. Now don't panic if you don't have a fancy dressage arena. Like I said earlier, you can mark off the corners and put some jumping rails here and there down the long side. You don't need fancy letters. You can put tape on the rail. You can see actually, you can see later, we do have some tape on the rails, or you could get cones, like the cones that they use when they do work on the road, or you could get plastic bathroom waste baskets and fill them with sand so they don't blow over, but just something to mark the dimensions of the arena. Because if you don't ride to specific points, what the horse is going to do, see, I'm mimicking a horse here now who is hollow to the left and stiff to the right. They will make the turns and the corners and the curves and the circles when their stiff side of their body is on the inside. They'll make those curves larger, and they'll make the curves on the hollow side of their body smaller. And so what will happen is you're not going to be able to develop that ability for the horse to be ambidextrous unless you ride towards specific points. So in this session, we're going to do two things. We're going to carry on from our circle and do a serpentine of 3 loops. And we're also going to do some turns on and off the center line and some turns across the school. We'll do them B-E, E-B with a change of direction. And the turns on and off the center line aren't actually school figures per se, the same with the turn across the school, but they are related to our school figures in that you have to be able to steer your horse. You have to be able to turn the horse, and that's a challenge, right, Colby? That's a challenge sometimes with a young horse. So I want to show you how to ride those figures correctly as well. But first, let's talk about the serpentine. As I said earlier in the other session, this arena is 20 meters wide and 60 meters long. In other words, it's 3 times as long as it is wide, which means that you can fit 3 20-meter circles end to end. And I'm going to go over, and well, Megan's going to go over, Megan and Colby are going to go over where the 3 circles are, because when you do your serpentine of 3 loops, basically you're doing 3 20-meter half circles. And the point where you go from one half circle to the other is where you cross the center line. And in that moment, it's very important, just for that one stride, that the horse's body is parallel to the short side. If you go across the center line with the horse's body at a little bit of an angle, you lose some of the difficulty of the movement in terms of the horse going from one bend to the other. So you just want to be parallel to the short side for that one stride. But first we're going to talk about the 20-meter circle. And when I did the 20-meter circle with Moshe, I was at the other end of the arena, and it might have been a little bit difficult for you to see the difference between the line that you're on when you're in a corner and the arc that you're on when you're in a 20-meter circle. And if you remember from that session, I said there should basically be a 3-meter difference between those 2 lines. Are you going to follow me? Between those 2 lines. The other thing that circles and serpentines have in common is that they begin and they end at A or at C. which means before your serpentine or circle starts, you go deep into the corner before. As soon as you come to A or C, you start your circle or serpentine. When you once again come to A or C, your circle or serpentine is finished and you go deep in the corner afterwards. So there's a good 3-meter difference between the arc of your circle and your corner. So you know now the length and the width of the arena. You need to know a little bit about the letters. This I know is by way of review. But the letters in the corner, H, M, K, and F, are 6 meters from the corner. Now this is where a lot of riders get into trouble. They start a circle or a serpentine and they aim for that corner letter. And your circle or your serpentine loop is going to look like an egg if you do that, because you need to be 10 meters from the corner in order to be doing part or all of a 20-meter circle. So follow me over here. You stay there. If this is 6 meters from the corner, the point where we look, 1, 2, 3, 4, is 4 meters past the letter. And remember, the key to both circles and serpentines is to look 2 reference points ahead. If you wait until you're on top of a reference point, in that case C over there, before you look up to your next point, you're going to have a bulge or a flat side on your circle or your serpentine loop. So you need to know your reference points, and then you look 2 points ahead and you basically connect the dots. So for a 20-meter circle, I'm going to describe it first, and then Colby and Megan are going to walk it for us. The points for the 20-meter circle, if we started at C, would be C, 4 meters past H. Now on the other side of the long side, you can see a point right across from where I'm standing, which is 4 meters above M. So those are 3 of your reference points. Now come back to me and I will show you that if we had an imaginary line that ran between H and M, knowing H and M are 6 meters from the corner, this imaginary line is 6 meters from the short side. All the other letters are twice that distance apart, or, follow me, 12 meters. Can you just move up a little bit, Megan? 12 meters apart, which means the imaginary line that runs between R and S is an additional 12 meters beyond the HM line. So 6 meters plus 12 meters means if you cross the center line here in either your circle or your serpentine, you'd still be making an egg. So you need to cross the center line 2 meters past the RS line. So here are your 4 reference points. C, 4 meters above H, 2 meters past the SR line, 4 meters before M, and C again. Now here's the interesting thing. Remember, all these other letters are 12 meters apart. So if you were to do a circle between E and B in the middle of the arena, this is one of your reference points. The top of your 20-meter circle at C would be the top of your circle between E and B, and you would touch here, you would touch at E, and you would touch at a point 4 meters this side of the PV line, and then you would touch at B, because to be this side of the PV line allows you to be 2 meters closer to X, and therefore your radius of your circle from X to the top or the bottom of the circle is 10 meters. And then you know how to do the circle at A. It's exactly the same as the circle at C. Your reference point, if we were tracking to the left, would be A, 4 meters above F, that same reference point that's 2 meters above the PF line, 4 meters before K, and A. So what I want you to do, Megan, just walk back here for a second and then turn to the left so that you can come down the long side. You're just going to walk this 20-meter circle at C. And I want people to see the difference between going into the corner before you start the circle and then coming out of the corner as soon as you touch the letter C. And I'm going to talk you through it. So we're going down the long side. Even though 3 meters is a good rule of thumb as far as getting into the corner, it all depends on your horse's balance. You get into the degree that his balance allows. Now, as she approaches C, she looks up 4 meters beyond the letter, beautiful, H, and just halt there if you can. ho. You can see that the arc, the line that she's on, is well out of the corner. There's a good 3 meter difference between this line that she's on, 1, 2, 3, and the line that she would be on if she were just going large. Okay, so 4 meters above H you would touch, then look 2 meters above the SR line. Remember, you always have to look 2 points ahead to connect the dots. And then look 4 meters above M. And you're basically connecting the dots. And then as you approach that point 4 giant steps before M, you look at C so that you stay out of this corner. This is a place where people get sucked into the corner at the end of their circle. Good. Now at C, your circle is done, Megan, so walk straight ahead and go into the corner. Very nice. And continue down the long side. Now I want to show you the circle between E and B. So Megan's just going to walk a circle starting at E. So as she approaches E, she's going to give a little turn of her left wrist to tell Colby he's going to look a little to the inside, then she's going to turn him with the outside rein, looking 2 meters this side of the PV line. Remember, this point's going to be a shared reference point for our serpentine, looking at B, and I'm standing 1, 2 meters to this side of the SR line, so come right toward me, keeping the bend. The inside aids are the bending aids, the outside aids are the turning aids, then looking at E. Super. And then your circle is done at E. So go down the long side and do 1 circle in the walk at A. So I wanted you to see the 3 circles that are tangent to each other in the large arena, because those will be our reference points for our serpentine. So go deep into this corner. As you approach A, look 4 meters above F. That's okay. Hold the rhythm with your back. That's normal for a young horse. Staying well out of that corner, you can see. Look 2 meters closer to me, past the PV line. This way, we know that the bend through the horse's side, as well as the bending of the joints of the inside hind leg, is exactly the same every single stride. Touching 4 meters before K, staying well out of that corner. Looking at A. When you come to A, you are done. So you go into the next corner. Good. Excellent. Now just have a little trot down the long side and then walk when you get up by M. We're now going to walk the 3-loop serpentine, and you'll see that the reference points are shared. The same reference points we used for the 20-meter circle. You can walk now. But we're doing 3 20-meter half circles. So go into this corner. Good. As you approach C, looking 4 meters beyond H. As you approach that point, looking on the center line 2 meters beyond the RS line, knowing that when you cross here, you're going to be parallel to the short side for 1 stride. But before you get here, turn your right wrist to warn Colby that you're going to be turning to the right for your serpentine. So he looks to the right. You bend him to the right with the inside aids, and you turn him with the outside aids. Looking 2 meters this side of the PV line. Start to flex him to the left so he knows he's going to be going in another direction, but turn him with the outer rein. That's a little bit too much bend in the neck. That's why the shoulder pops out. Staying out of the corner. When you get to A, you're done, so go deep in the corner. So you change the flexion of the horse before you change the direction that he's going. Now in a moment, we're going to do that in rising trot. And so there's another complication, which is to change your posting diagonal as you cross the center line. So you're going to, in this order, Megan, you change the horse's flexion, you change your posting diagonal, then you take him on to the next loop. So you have to plan ahead. So a nice working trot rising, the same serpentine. Good. Going into this corner, look 4 meters above H. Look 2 meters beyond the RS line before you get to the center line. Change your flexion, change your posting diagonal, beautiful, and change direction. You want to change the diagonal before you change direction. Good, flex him left, change diagonal. Good, perfect. Careful not to overbend the neck to the inside or the shoulder pops out and you have a little bulge on your serpentine. So come down the long side. You can see that that's an issue for Colby. He's just like I told you, hollow to the left and stiff to the right. So the correction we're going to make, Megan, for him to make him more ambidextrous so he doesn't overbend his neck to the left is flex him to the right on all 3 loops. So we're going to have a little counter flexion on this, beautiful, that's it, on this loop and the 3rd loop. Because the axis straightness perfect is important. And stay in right flexion, good. And then when you do the last loop, also stay in right flexion. So that the shoulders stay, yeah, that's better. Okay, good correction. Shoulders stay between the reins. When you're at A, you're done, go into the corner. Good, and then walk and pet him. Very nice, long rein tail. Just relax for a second. Okay, so you saw the relationship between the 20-meter circles and the serpentine. The reference points are exactly the same. You saw that you have to change flexion, change your posting diagonal, then with your outside aids, change direction. But we do this to make the horse more ambidextrous. So when a horse shows us that he's softer on one side than the other, Colby was showing us on that 3rd loop that he's hollow to the left and likes to pop out the right shoulder, the correction is to ride him in a little -1 flexion. Remember, that means his face is 1 inch flex to the outside of a neutral position so that Megan can keep his shoulders exactly between the reins. So that's how you ride your serpentine of 3 loops. Now, not so much as a flexibility exercise like the circle and the serpentine, but more as a steering exercise, because we know with young horses, steering is a big issue. As I said in the development of the language, we need to know that we can stop, we can go, we can turn left, and we can turn right. So simple turns on and off the center line and across the school are good exercises for a young horse. And if you compete, what you want to think about in order to do a good turn on and off of the center line and across the school, your reference points in that case are 3 meters. Now, if I were going to pretend this was A, and I was going to turn onto the center line at A, when I am 3 meters away from the letter, can you hear me okay? When I'm 3 meters away from the letter, I would start my arc and aim for a point on the center line also 3 meters from the letter. Now I'm going to reverse. Let's say that this is C, because it is. And I'm coming down the center line toward the judge. When I am 3 meters from the letter, I indicate to the horse by asking him for flexion which way he's going to go. Then I turn him with the outside rein so that when I'm 3 meters from the letter, I look at a point on the rail, also 3 meters from the letter. And that way I make a nice, smooth arc. Now the biggest mistake that riders make, especially on their the turn onto the center line in competition, is they get too close to the letter. And if you get too close to the letter, I'm not sure if I'm too close for you to see this, but Megan will demonstrate from the other end. If you get too close to the letter before you start your turn, you're going to overshoot your turn, and then you have to make this big correction to get back on the center line. So if you're gonna make a mistake, it's better for you to undershoot the center line. In other words, start earlier than 3 meters, and then if you're shy of the center line, you can just kind of either leg yield or drift over so that you end up on the center line. It's not such an obvious fault. Did you get that, Colby? He says, yeah, I think I have that. And the same rule applies for the turn across the school and the change of direction. If you compete, we have that movement in some of the tests. Start the turn off of the track when you're 3 meters before the letter. Aim for a point on that imaginary line across the school 3 meters away from the letter, and the same thing for the turn off that line. Once again, better to start a little earlier and drift onto the line than turn too close to the letter and overshoot so you're not exactly on the BE line. So let's just do some, in the trot, you can go rising or sitting, I don't care. Some turns onto the center line and off of the center line. Just staying in the trot, you don't have to halt. But your reference points are 3 meters. That's nice. Just a hair higher with the pole. Go into the corner, start your turn now. He's a big horse, pull up. Good, good. And make a little channel between your 2 legs and 2 hands so that you ride him straight down the center line. Your choice which way you want to turn, left or right, but start 3 meters before the letter, flex him with the inner aids. Good, turn him with the outer aids, well done. Turn left at E, 3 meters before E, and right at B. Good flexion for preparation, turning, well done. Channel between legs and hands, flex him right, turn him with the left rein, beautiful. Do the turn onto the center line again, on and off of the center line. Start early, he's a big boy. Better to, good, better to, whoops. Go back and do that again, start a little earlier. You see there was a tiny little rhythm fault because the turn was too tight for him. And remember our training scale, rhythm, rhythm, rhythm. Start now. Yeah, that's smoother. Good. And then make your channel between legs and hands. His chin is right in the middle crease of the chest, and then you decide if you're going to turn to the right or to the left. So flex him whichever way you want to go, but turn 3 meters. Good. And then we'll just do one more turn across the school. You had him in a nice frame on the short side in the corner. He got a little deep. Start 3 meters, arc smoothly. Good. Pull up. Channel, flex left, turn, lovely, that was super. And then walk, tighten your tummy muscles, and you can bring him back up here. Well done, Megan and Colby, thank you. So, simply for steering issues, you want to be able to practice correct turns on and off of the center line and across the school. If you want to know how to do them and get a good score in competition, 3 meters is your reference point. If your guiding light as far as do I need to turn earlier than 3 meters is if your horse loses his balance. And we can see on that turn onto the center line from the right, this is a big young horse and he lost his balance. So we needed to give him even more room to come around. But we want to know, we will know that the balance is maintained if the rhythm and the frame and the quality of the working gait stays the same. So that's why we want to practice turns on and off of the center line and across the school. Whether or not you compete is beside the point. You need to be able to steer. And as far as making him more ambidextrous so he can bend just as well to the right as he does to the left, we want to do school figures, flexibility exercises like that serpentine. But remember, your serpentine isn't going to do you any good if you don't ride it accurately. So that's why you have to know where your reference points are. Good job, guys.
Thank you.